Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei fall in love with Sky Dragon Queen Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support the Silver the Snow Wolf for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in description. Let's start this video. Today of the first day of the New Year school, and a young teenager who lived inside of an old apartment complex was sighing as shouting could be heard from one of the rooms. I wish they would just break up already. The teen is a beautiful young girl with pale skin and beautiful long baby blue with white highlights in hair. Her body height is around 5'4" feet tall with a thin build and C-size chest. Her eyes are pretty purple color with unique reptile-like pupils. Her outfit was a uniform consisting of a white long-sleeved button-down shirt with vertical linings, a black ribbon on the collar, a black shoulder cape and matching button-down corset, and a magenta skirt with white accents. She was walking from her apartment that was on the second floor with her school bag in her hands. She was walking down the stairs before someone shouted at her. "Kid," she turned to see a tall and buxom woman with brown eyes and long navy blue hair that obscured her right eye. Her attire consisted of a maroon trench coat-like top with a wide collar, a matching miniskirt, and black-heeled shoes. The trench coat top was open at her chest, giving view to her breasts and cleavage. She also wore a gold necklace around her neck. She appears to wear a white shirt underneath her top, but it can only be seen from the bottom. This woman was standing at the top of the stairs with a bag in her hand. "Oh, Kalwerner-san, good morning." The young teen said as Kalwerner smiled at the teen as she walked down. "Are you going to school?" Kalwerner asked, and the teen nodded with a big smile. "Well, I'm happy to see that." Both girls started to walk down the street together. "So Kalwerner-san, how are you and uncle doing? I just heard you both shouting at each other." The teen asked, and Kalwerner sighed. "Ryoko-chan, please don't come back home tonight." Kalwerner said, and the teen named Ryoko looked at her blue-haired friend. "I headed straight to the park once school finished and waited for me." Ryoko didn't know what was going on, but in the years after losing her mother in an accident, Kalwerner was the closest person who was her mother. "Okay, Kalwerner-san." Ryoko looked at the ground only for Kalwerner to pat her head. "Remember what you are to call me." Kalwerner smiled and Ryoko blushed. "Okay, Wani." Ryoko smiled as Kalwerner removed her hand. "But my girl," she said as the two of them went to the main road and students were walking down both sides. "Okay, Ryoko-chan, have a good day and remember to meet me at the park." Ryoko nodded before giving Kalwerner a hug and ran off. "That girl." Kalwerner smiled before Ryoko shouted as she jumped in the air. "Wish me good luck, Wani." Ryoko said before she landed and ran to her school. Kalwerner chucked before she started to walk to the church on the outside of town. Ryoko was running pretty fast from someone her age, running past people, student, and she even jumped onto a wall just to get past people. Ryoko is pretty sporty as she is one of the fastest girls in Kuo Academy, but not a member of the track team. Ryoko rushed across the wall until a gap between the walls led to a side street. Ryoko front flapped over the gap and leaded before rushing at her top speeded. She was pretty good at acrobatics, but not part of the gymnastics team. Ryoko was about to finally reach the end of the wall, stretching to three people walking past. One was a tall male with a sporty built body and shaved hair, and normally wears his Kuo Academy uniform with an unbuttoned blazer. The second is a normal high school boy with a bit of a bad hairstyle and wearing a set black glasses and wearing the Kuo Academy uniform. And lastly, a high school student of average height with short spiky brown hair, with two short locks of hair behind his head and light brown eyes, wearing the Kuo Academy boys' school uniform. The only difference is that he had a red shirt on show underneath. Once the three came into sight of Ryoko, she started to get faster. "Issei-senpai," she shouted, and the brown hair bod turned around to see a Ryoko in the air, and his eyes widened as the girl was around their head and flipping over they and land in front of the boys with her arms out. The boys clapped as Ryoko turned around with a smile on her face. "Good morning, Ryoko-chan," the shaved hair said as she bowed. "Good morning, Mitsuda-senpai, Motohama-senpai." Ryoko looked at the brown hair boy before blushing as he was smiling at her. "And good morning, Issei-senpai," Ryoko said, and Issei smiled at her. "Morning, Ryoko, how are you this morning?" he said, and Ryoko nodded with a beautiful smile. "I'm doing good." The three boys smiled at the young girl. The boys are the pervert trio, one of the most hated groups at Kuo Academy, and every girls in the school hated they guts. Well, expanded one girl. Ryoko gets along with them as she a bit of a perv herself. "Oh, the tennis club are going to be using the changing room today at 11:15 before practice." Ryoko told the boys what club are going to be using the changing rooms, and they started to get hyper. "But they're Ryoko-chan from you," Motohama said as Ryoko giggled. She liked to help the boys out with their activities. Motohama started to root through his bags as he looking for something and pulled out a set of photos. "I think this will be good payment," he said as he handed the photo to Ryoko, who take them and looked at them, and her eyes widened. The photos are for the kendo girls changing, and Ryoko was started to smile. Good. Ryoko nodded. Oh, this is our perfect. She put them in her school bag. Oh, and a little bit of free information, the kendo club are patrolling the changing rooms, so be careful. Ryoko said as the guys nodded at the young teen girl before the four of them started to walk to the school. The 14 are walking to school in pairs, both Mitsuda and Motohama in the front of the group with both Ryoko and Issei in the back. Both Mitsuda and Motohama know Ryoko about her little crush on Issei, and the two help her out in exchange. She helped them out with their perverted actions and act like a spy on the clubs. So Issei senpai. Ryoko called her senpai who looked at her. How are your parents doing? She asked and Issei smiled. They doing fine, but they need asking me if you are going to have dinner with us again. Issei said, and this made Ryoko giggle. You should come over sometime. He asked and Ryoko nodded. I will be around this weekend. Ryoko smiled as Issei looked at her with a painful smile before whispering to her. But your uncle being a asshole again? Issei asked as Ryoko looked at Flora and nodded. Right, if he does anything to you come to me and I will deal with him. Issei said as Ryoko blushed and looked at Issei before giving him a gentle smile. Thanks you Issei senpai. Ryoko pulled on Issei's right blazer sleeve and pulled herself closer as Issei smiled. Thank you for being by my side. Ryoko sighed in her mind. Ryag's host should protect you from danger. Ryoko froze up as she was hearing a voice inside of her head. She stopped and this made Issei who looked at her oddly as she was sweating. Ryoko-chan, are you okay? He asked as Ryoko looked at him and she shook her head and smiled. I'm fine, just my mead got a little dizzy, that was all. She said, trying to play it cool, but Issei was not having it as he kneeled down in front of her. Issei senpai? She asked as he looked out over his shoulder. I will carry you to school as you don't look well. He said and Ryoko blushed before climb up onto Issei back and he stood up. Both of their friends was watching what was going on. Are you okay Ryoko-chan? Mitsuda asked as Ryoko given a little smile. I'm okay, just a little dizzy, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. She said as both Mitsuda and Motohama nodded to her. If you needed anything like us know. Motohama said as Ryoko nodded and decided to rest her head on Issei's shoulder as he carried her to school. Luckily for him Ryoko pretty light and he was strong enough to hold her. Ryoko feel really sleepy and she decided not to fight it as she drifted off. Ryoko was floating on a sea of clouds. Her eyes opened slowly before she sat up. Where I am? She asked herself as she looked around to see that she was on top of the sea of clouds with a clear blue sky above. I'm in heaven. She said as she feel like someone was watching her and Ryoko looked around quickly to see nothing but clouds. By my. Ryoko heard a female voice coming from behind her and turned around to a light blue dragon looking at her. The dragon had a single horn on its head and her eyes are pure purple. The dragon neck was running below Ryoko as she followed the dragon neck only to see that she was lying on the dragon's stomach with two great wings coming from the dragon. You finally wake up, my dear Ryoko. Ryoko was a little shocked and sacred. I'm not going to hurt you. The dragon said as Ryoko feel a little bit more calmer. Ryoko sat herself class leg. Who are you? Ryoko asked and the dragon giggled. I'm Holdredies, or the Sky Dragon Queen as my fellow dragons called me. Holdredies said as Ryoko looked at her eyes. You have beautiful eyes. Ryoko smiled and Holdredies nodded. So do you. Ryoko blushed. Oh, you're a cutie. Holdredies said as Ryoko was thinking. You're thinking if this was a dream? Holdredies asked and Ryoko was shocked. Can you read my mind? She asked and Holdredies nodded. Oh my god. Ryoko was embarrassed as Holdredies laughed. I'm not going to re-added your mind, but you know that we are linked together. Ryoko right hand started to glow as a sky blue metal like a gauntlet that manifests on her arm, leaving her fingers uncovered with a blue gem that was a white flame on the inside. Ryoko panicked at the sight of her gauntlet. The Sky Dragon Royal Mirror. That there is my soul. Ryoko looked at Holdredies. Sky Dragon Mirror? Ryoko asked and Holdredies nodded. Ryoko then feel like her body was growing colder. My body feel like it getting colder. Ryoko said and Holdredies giggled. That my dear is because the Sky Dragon Mirror is changing your body to help you control its power. Holdredies said as Ryoko looked at her. Don't worry, just think of it as an upgrade. Holdredies said and Ryoko calmed down. Ryoko, I wanted you to keep this a secret from the people around you. Ryoko was confused. Why? She asked and Holdredies sighed. There are people who would try to harm you for even knowing about the supernatural. Holdredies said and Ryoko was shocked. So should I keep quiet about my new powers? Ryoko asked and Holdredies nodded before looked at Holdredies' stomach. But for your own safety until the Red Dragon Emperor awakened. Ryoko was confused. Oh, I forget you don't much about the supernatural yet. Here let me explain. Holdredies told Ryoko about the history of the supernatural, about God, devil, angels and fallen angels in the Great War. I'm the dragon's world, I was the once of the influential dragon around. Holdrati said with pride and Ryoko was shocked. How strong was you? The young blue-haired teen asked and Holdrati smiled. I was not the strongest dragon, I couldn't ever get the title of Dragon King. Ryoko was confused. Dragon King? Ryoko asked and Holdrati nodded. The title that was only a 5 dragons had. Ryoko gave a face. Their power was something to be feared, my older sister is the strongest of the Dragon Kings and she was scary. Holdrati joked and Ryoko giggled. I bet you miss her? Ryoko asked and she nodded. I miss her deeply, but I know one day that I will meet her again. Holdrati sounds sad and that was when Ryoko stood up. I will take you to her. Ryoko said and Holdrati smiled at the young girl before being her head close to Ryoko's face and rubbed her cheek. Hi. Ryoko giggled. Thank you Ryoko. Holdrati said as Ryoko patted her nose with a smile. Ryoko, I wanted to tell you a little secret about why I was so influential. Ryoko looked at Holdrati in the eyes before she spoke. One of my powers is a charm that make other dragons very friendly with me and very few dragons could resist. Why are you telling me? Ryoko asked as Holdrati answered. Because you are now a dragon sacred gear holder and dragons draw strong allies and enemies to themselves. And my charm has always drawn more powerful dragons to my side and it will do the same to you and you have already have the Red Dragon Emperor. Holdrati said and Ryoko's eyes widened. The Red Dragon Emperor is one of the 2 strongest dragons who ever lived and his hosts have been powerful, so I just wanted to give you a wanted about it. Ryoko looked at Holdrati with a shock face as Holdrati grinned. Maybe you could have a bunch of boys and maybe some girls too who are going to be madly in love with you. Ryoko blushed at what Holdrati said and covered her face. Holdrati, I'm embarrassed. Ryoko said as Holdrati giggled. Oh, if that happens. Ryoko was in her own world as she was imagining herself with her in the middle of a bedroom full of hot guys and beautiful women. Holdrati started to giggle at her host little daydream. Ryoko. Holdrati called Ryoko who snapped out of her dream. It's time for you to return to the real world. Holdrati said before Ryoko nodded and rushed over to Holdrati's neck and hugged her. Will I see you again? Ryoko asked and Holdrati nodded. I'm always with you and all you needed to do to call me is say my name and I will reply to you. Holdrati said before Ryoko closed her eyes and her body felt heavier than before. Back in the real world, Ryoko felt herself laying on something soft. She slowly opened her eyes to find herself looking at a wooden roof and white curtains and around her, Ryoko slowly pulled herself up and sat in the bed she was just laying in. Am I in the nurse's office? Ryoko said as she looked around to see that no one was around. I wondered if I was dreaming. She asked herself only for a voice to play in her mind. Holdrati's that was no dream. Holdrati said in Ryoko's mind and she started to look around in a panic. Ryoko at me, Holdrati's. Ryoko looked at her right hand to see a white gem on her hand and she started to calm down. It's good to see that you are adjusting well. Holdrati said and Ryoko nodded. It's going to take some time to get used to. Ryoko said before she heard the door opened and she hid her right hand under the covers as the person who entered the room come over to Ryoko's bed and pulled the curtains only to reveal her friend Issei. Issei senpai at you. She said and Issei was a little shocked. Ryoko-chan, you're awake. Issei said in a sigh of relief as Ryoko nodded at him. You've been asleep for over 3 hours. Ryoko looked at the clock that was hanging on the wall to see that it was 12 p.m. and her eyes widened. Issei pulled over a seat and sat down next to Ryoko's bed. How are you feeling? He asked and Ryoko smiled. A lot better. Ryoko said before a memory played in her mind and this made her giggle and Issei looked at her. Has remembered me the time we both first meet. She said and Issei chuckled himself. You're right. He said. You fell over on the way to school and I had to carry you as no one was willing to help you out. Issei grinned as Ryoko giggled. That was over 4 years ago back in middle school, you was still a pervert back then too. Ryoko said before she smiled and looked at the bed. It was around to the time my dad died and I was depressed. Issei looked at her in sadness. Yeah. You almost never smiled back then and whenever you did it was always forced. He said as Ryoko looked at him. But thanks to you, I managed to recover. She smiled and Issei smiled back. This made Ryoko blush a little as she looked away. I own you a lot. Ryoko said to Issei before she started to smell something. Wait a minute. She started to smell Issei. I never smelled this before. She frowned. Issei-senpai, why do you smell like that? Ryoko began to question Issei who was confused. What? He said as Ryoko moved closer to him. Ryoko-chan. Ryoko was right now in Issei's face. He smelled like something sweet. Most all like a girl perfume. She thought before Holdrati answered. I think that he may be a devil and that what you was smelling. Holdrati said and Ryoko was shocked. Issei-chan, who have you been with today? Ryoko asked and Issei was a little shocked. I can smell another woman on you. Issei was sweat a little. So who the other girl? Ryoko was right now kneeling on the bed with her face in Issei's as he was trying his best not to fall over. Tell me. Betrayed Gremory-senpai. He shouted and Ryoko was confused. I'm in the orc remember and she was helping me out with my homework up until an hour ago. Ryoko looked at Issei to see if he was lying. His right hand not moving. He telling me the truth. Ryoko pull away and sit down normally as Issei relaxed. What got you in a bad mood? He asked as Ryoko was pouting. Gremory-senpai being so close to you. She said and Issei grinned. Oh, is little Ryoko-chan jealous? Issei said to Ryoko who growled like a dragon and Issei take a step back. Okay, someone a little angry. He said before Ryoko stood up. You can go die Pev. She said in an angry tone as she walked over to the door, but before she walked out Ryoko looked over she shoulder at Issei. You Welsh dragon pervert. She said before leaving and this left Issei in shock. Ryoko decided to skip school as she didn't want to deal with Issei as the two are in the same class. Meanwhile Issei stayed in the nurse's office. Dryag, how did she know? Issei asked as he sighted his hand arm to see a green gem. If I was to guess, she could be a dragon herself. A old voice said and Issei was confused. Her eye are dragon-like and she could smell the red-haired devil on you? So she could be a dragon who hiding or she has a dragon-type sacred gear. Dryag said as Issei looked at the door. Partner, I wanted you to stay close to that girl until we find out what she really is. Drag said as Issei nodded. Nodded, but Dryag, what if she is trying to hide from something and she doesn't want anyone to know? Issei asked and Dryag sighed. Ryoko is pretty pissed off with her crush as he was with another girl and that was playing with her emotions and she needed to blow off some steam. Ryoko is walked the street Kuo armlessly as her leg was just moving as she was shouting in her mind. Stupid Issei-senpai. He got me and he go try to get with over girls. Ryoko was just repeating this over and over in her mind and Holdredies was get a little annoyed. Ryoko, please calm down, your anger is upsetting me. Holdredies said and Ryoko snapped off of her mood. Oh sorry. Ryoko apology and her mind started to wondered. Hi Holdredies, could you tell who this Welsh dragon is? She asked and Holdredies sighed. Remember what I told you about the Red Dragon Emperor? Holdredies asked and Ryoko nodded. Be one of the strongest dragons in the world, right? Holdredies nod to Ryoko. Well, what I don't tell you was that Dryag and his rival the White Dragon Albion used to be close to me. Holdredies said and Ryoko was shocked. What do you mean by close? Ryoko asked and Holdredies sighed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but Dryag and Albion used to follow me around back on my younger days. Ryoko was confused by this. The pair used to fight for my attention a lot. Holdredies said as Ryoko started to piece it all together. So they used to fight to see who would go out with you? Ryoko asked and Holdredies nodded. It got annoying after 50 years, so I just told them to stop fight and be my brothers or lose me forever. The two agreed to stop fighting and started to protect me from danger. Holdredies said in a sad tone and Ryoko was wondering why. I truly love them both, but they left to fight God and I was left alone as the two was trapped in they sacred gears. Holdredies said and Ryoko eyes widened in shock. Holdredies, how was you trapped? Ryoko asked, but Holdredies don't say. Ryoko, that's something I don't wanted to talk about as you are not ready to know. Ryoko looked at her right hand to see a blue gem. It was something personal and that all I'm going to say. Ryoko nodded. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked, but what happened if I ran into your friends? Ryoko asked and Holdredies chuckled. Fuck the living shit out of them. Holdredies said and Ryoko blushed bright red. I'm joking. You should try to learn how to control your aura first as it your strongest weapon. Ryoko was interested. With it, you can use magic more effectively and your willpower can bring an enraged dragon to a more calm state and other supernatural beings will come to repeat and fear you. Holdredies said and Ryoko was started to think. Think of it like this, when you started to unlock my power and make them your own, Dryag host will notice you more. Ryoko got giddy and started to giggle. Maybe that harem dream that Issei-senpai has. Maybe could happen to me. Ryoko said before she felt something was watching her. She stopped an alleyway and closed her eyes and she was focusing on her hearing, blocking the sound of cars and noises of the city. She heard someone leading down her, so she threw her school to a wall as she turned around at high speed with her feet at the side of someone's face. Ryoko looked at the people who was in front of her. A handsome young man with light silver hair and hazel eyes, he is wearing a dark green V-neck shirt with a high-collared black leather jacket over it. He also wears burgundy jeans with a silver chain drooping down over them and black leather chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf and black shoes with black buckles. I see. You must be well trained to be able to do this to me. The man said as he pushed Ryoko feet away from his face and Ryoko returned to a fight stance. As the man grinned. A spear user without her spear. He said as Ryoko watched him. I'm not here to start a fight with you. He looked at Ryoko in the eyes. I spotted you walking in angry mood, so I decided to follow you as you are releasing a powerful arrow. He said, and Ryoko blushed as she clamped down, and the boy smiled. I guess you don't know how to control your arrow yet? He asked, and Ryoko nodded. The key to control your arrow is focus. If you started to meditate and focus on your soul, then you will started to unlock it. He said before Ryoko walked over to her bag and picked it up and walked past the boy. I know that you have a sacred gear. Ryoko froze up as she was behind the young man and he looked over his shoulder. I'm not going to attack you, but I'm going to give you a warning. With the level of power that you was releasing was dangerous if you don't train, so I recommend that you find someone to teach you. Ryoko smiled and looked over her shoulder as the boy. I could have you teach me, but I guess you're busy. Ryoko joked and the boy sighed with a smile. Go pack 8 PM and I will train you in the basics. He said before Ryoko giggled. Sorry, but I don't go on dates with someone who I don't know, and I don't want to know you as I got someone who can teach me and all I need to do is asks, but thanks for the offer. See you later. Ryoko began to walk off, but before she got out of the alley, the man shouted. Hatch. Ryoko turned around and grabbed a piece of paper. Ryoko looked at him. Once you learned how to use magic, use that to contact me and I show you how to release your sacred gear true power. He said is set for white metal wing with blue energy feathers shot from his back and he looked at Ryoko one last time. Also I like you eyes, they pretty and you not so bad yourself. He said before taking to the sky and disappear. Ryoko was in shocked. Okay, that was unexpected. Already said and Ryoko nodded, but before she could spoke her phone was going off and she pulled it out to see the name, Uncle Zell. Hello. Ryoko answered the phone. Ryoko-chan, I heard you was not feeling well. Ryoko smiled as her favorite uncle was nice. I'm a little under the weather and I'm right now close to the park close to my house. She said and uncle nodded on the other side of the phone. Well, Kalwerner-san and yourself are going to be living with me from now on, so started to head to my place and I tell Kalwerner that you are on your way home. He said as Ryoko nodded. Thanks Aja-san. Ryoko ended the call before putting her phone into her pocket. I guess that why Wani told me not to go home. Ryoko said to herself before looked at the buildings around her. Look, Holdredes cut Ryoko off. Don't even try to climb the buildings, young lady. Ryoko sighed as her dragon friend just told her off. Ryoko just decided to walk to her Uncle Zell house. Break. Ryoko has been walking for 1 hour before coming up to a Lang apartment complex that was over 50 stories high. She looked the Lang building. Can't believe that he managed to buy this whole place. Ryoko chuckled to herself before walking to the building door that automatically opened and led it to a fancy entrance. With a reception desk and Ryoko walked over to find a female receptionist with blonde hair and green eyes. Welcome to Grigori Haven. How can I help you? The receptionist asked as Ryoko answered. I'm here to see my uncle, my name Ryoko Snowflake. The receptionist's eyes widened. Oh Snowflake-sama, your uncle is on the top floor and please take the elevator over there. The receptionist pointed to an elevator and Ryoko nodded before walking to the elevator and pushed the 50th floor button, the door closed and away she goes. It take around 15 minutes to get to the top floor and in that time Ryoko got a little training in and followed the boy instructions and started to meditate thanks to Holdredes as she take Ryoko conscious into the Sky Dragon Royal Mirror as time is slowed down in there. As 1 hour in the mirror is equal to 1 minute in the real world if Ryoko wants to. So Ryoko start to learn how to focus her mind and body as lasted for 15 hours and Ryoko noticed that her body was changing slowly and something was awakening inside of her soul. But Holdredes said not to worry about this feeling as it was Ryoko powers slowly unlocking themselves and she will be able to use them soon. Ryoko stepped out the elevators and looking at a large photo of her as a younger kid in a wild summer dress and holding a teddy bear in her arms with a big smile and Ryoko sighed. Forgot that he even take that. Ryoko smiled. But he does look out for me, so I will let him off. Ryoko turned to her left to see a big double door with twins dragons on it. Why do I feel uncomfortable about this door and what behind it? Ryoko said as she walked up only to hear people talking. Azazel-sama, she not to have her sacred gear completed. Ryoko hear Kalwerner speaking. You remember what happened the last time we tried? Ryoko was confused about what Kalwerner was talking about, but she decided to knock on the door. Aja-san at me. Ryoko walked into a room to find on the left for the door with a bathroom with both bathtub and shower on the right was a wall covered in a big bookshelves with a desk in the middle of this. Most from the book was history, different type of study and fairy tale books. The odd few comics and novels. And lastly was a big fucking bed that covered a quarter room floor space. It touched a back wall and both side walls let just say you could fit a full-grown dragon in it. Hi Wani, Aja-san. Ryoko looked at a tall man appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and black goatee. Summit, Azazel wore a v-neck maroon long coat with a wide open high collar that opens up at the hem. The long coat also featured 2 black belts around the waist and 4 black bands on each arm, 2 of the bands at the wrist and the other 2 near the elbow. He wore gray slacks and brown shoes. "Hi Ryoko-chan." Ryoko smiled at her uncle. "Welcome home." He looked at Kalawiner. "We will continue this later," he said as Kalawiner nodded. "Ryoko-chan, you're probably wondering what is going on." Ryoko nodded and Azazel smiled before speaking again. "Well, from this day and you will be living with me here, and this room is now your bedroom bed." Azazel stood up and walked over to Ryoko before placing his hand on her shoulder, and she froze up. Azazel sighed before letting her go. "I will have Penemusen get you some counseling if you wanted." Ryoko smiled and nodded. "Thank Oisin." Ryoko said as Azazel returned the smile to her, but just before she was going to ask if she could rest for the rest of the evening. The young man 4x4 voice played and Ryoko was feeling a strange feeling coming from Azazel. "Ajasan, do you know about sacred gears?" Ryoko asked as both Azazel and Kalawiner eyes widened. "Ryoko-chan, how do you know about that?" Azazel asked as Ryoko summoned her Sky Dragon Royal Mirror. "That the Sky Dragon Royal Mirror?" Azazel looked at Ryoko in the eyes. Azazel sighed. "I guess that you knew what me and Kalawiner are?" he asked and Ryoko shook her head. "No, but I do feel the energy around you." Ryoko said as Azazel sighed and smiled. "Well, that normal," he said before 6 black angels appeared from his back. "Well, Kalawiner-san and myself are fallen angels." Ryoko was shocked. "You probably have questions?" he asked and she nodded. "I have a few," she said, but a royal sky dragon mirror started glowing. "I need to borrow your body for a few minutes." And before Ryoko could react, her mind was blank. 3 days later. Ryoko wake up in the Lang and in complete shocked. "What?" She looked around to find herself in the room she was in before. "Ryoko sweetie, calm down," Holdrati said as Ryoko realized that her dragon friend was talking to her. "How are you feeling?" Holdrati asked as Ryoko. "I'm feeling a little funny with you take my body," and I blinked out, "but other than that I'm good." Ryoko joke as Holdrati giggled. "Azazel is going to let me explain the history of the factions and everything else as he just getting something ready for us." So Holdrati started to explain that Azazel is the leader of the fallen angel and that Ryoko is a member of the fallen angel family now. "So what am a fallen angel now?" Ryoko asked and her dragon shook her head. "Still human. Still human," Holdrati said as Ryoko got out of bed. "Also, I had the chance to take a long look at your magic aura and I shook to say that you are ready of the second part of my sacred gear," Holdrati said as Ryoko was starting to get out of bed. "Well, can that wait?" Ryoko asked as she wanted to see what for breakfast. "I'm very hungry," Holdrati sighed as Ryoko has not noticed what on her back as she walked over to the bathroom and started to have a shower. "Man, why can't I?" Ryoko was naked in the shower and washing her back until. "What?" Ryoko turned her head to the right and spotted a set of small blue feathery wing on her back and Ryoko eyes widened. "Ayo!" Ryoko screamed as she fell to the ground. "Holdrati's. What going on with my body?" Ryoko called to her dragon. "Ryoko sweetie, that the second part of my scared gear Sky Dragon Royal Scarf." Ryoko was shocked by this as she only just got the mirror gear today. "How long have I had this for?" she asked as Holdrati sighed. 3 days. Holdrati said as Ryoko got up. "Also think of a scarf to turn it back to normal." Ryoko did that before the wings warp around Ryoko neck and appeared as a long scarf that wrap around the Ryoko neck and the ends hanging down her back. Ryoko felt warm and she pulled the scarf up to her face and smiled. It smelled like home. Ryoko started to get out of the bathroom and slowly dry herself off. 3 day? She asked herself and sighed. "Issei senpai is going to be mad with me." Ryoko smiled as Issei was the first one who come to mind and she giggled before looking at the clock at 6:12 am. "I should get ready for school," Ryoko said before getting her uniform on, and once she done. She looked in the mirror and smiled. Still cute. Ryoko looked at herself and find that her skin is a new shine to it and her face looks more beautiful than before. "What? Holdrati's?" Ryoko called her Holdrati's, but she didn't get what she wanted. Zzzzzzz, Holdrati's was asleep. Ryoko smiled before walking out of her and looked around. "So this is home now?" she thought before Azazel walked by and smiled. "Ryoko-chan, good morning," Azazel said as Ryoko smiled and nodded. "Oijin, good morning." Ryoko smiled before Azazel walked over and patted the young girl. "Oijin, have a good day at school and watch out of the devils there," he asked as Ryoko was confused. "Just be careful." Ryoko nodded before acting tough. "Don't wrong if anyone come close to touching me, I blow them away with my new magic." Azazel smiled. "Well, I could make you into a fallen angel and you will be more powerful," Azazel said as Ryoko looked at him. I made a promise to your old man a long time ago to keep you in, and I don't know if you want to live a normal human life or in the supernatural, but if you wanted to be more powerful, then let me know and I will make you into the most power sacred gear user in history," he said as Ryoko looked at the ground. "Well, Azazel, making more dragons join your side. A new boy come walking around the corner wearing the cool uniform. It the boy from before, the one with the sacred gear. It good to meet you again, Miss Ryoko Snowflake, the name Volley Lucifer and a soldier who work under your uncle," the boy said before Ryoko blushed as she find this Volley guy was okay to look at. Azazel looked between the two. "Well, it good that you both know each other." Both teens looked at Azazel. "Volley, you are here by Ryoko bodyguard." Ryoko and Volley was shocked. "Really?" Volley asked and Azazel nodded. "On terms of power, Volley, you have the most between you both, and the devils at the school are not going to let someone with a scared gear walk around, and they live a normal person, and if they find out about Ryoko-chan being under my protection, that going to make problems for both factions, as I know that the red-head heiress is a bit of a jealous and short-tempered person, and if the red dragon is one of her group, then Ryoko-chan is a target." Volley crossed his arm as he got serious. "The red dragon weak and Ryoko is more powerful than the red dragon in her already formed power." Volley looked at Ryoko. "In my eye, she already at the level of a high-end mid-class devil or a four-winged fallen angel." Ryoko was shocked as she don't feel that powerful. "So Volley-kun?" Ryoko called to Volley, who growled. "Just Volley with no kun," he said as Ryoko nodded. "So Volley?" Volley looked at Ryoko. "Are you joining me school?" she asked as Volley nodded, and this made Ryoko raise her fist to the air. "Yes." Volley and Azazel was confused as Ryoko grinned and Volley began to sweat. "Okay, why I'm scared?" he asked as Ryoko jumped at Volley and hugged his arm, pulling it into his cheek. This made Volley blush as Ryoko smiled. "Becomes you're going to be my boyfriend?" Volley and Azazel was shocked by this. "What?" Volley was about to faint as Ryoko looked at him oddly. "When did I become your boyfriend?" Volley asked as Ryoko nodded. "Well, Lloydson made you my bodyguard, but if you're going to school with me, then people are going to ask why you are around me all the time, and some of my friend are a little protective of me, so if I said that you're my boyfriend, that stop girls going after you, and if I know the boys, they can be a little fun with new kid, so you being with me stop them from trying anything, as I know a few scary people in class," Ryoko said as Volley sighed. "So long as I didn't have to deal with high school idiots," Volley said as Ryoko smiled. "That my white knight." Ryoko kissed Volley cheek, making him pass out. Azazel laughed before Ryoko giggled. "Ryoko-chan?" Ryoko looked at Azazel, who smiled. "Don't tell anyone that you're the Sky Dragon Queen or that may trigger red protect nature." Ryoko nodded. "I'm Ryoko Snowflake, a scared gear user," Ryoko said before letting her scarf turn into a set of blue dragon wing. "I think that should work, right?" she asked as Azazel started to think before nodding. "Just use the scarf only for now, as it has the ability to control powerful lighting magic, but if you needed to use your mirror, as it can block magic attacks and increase your own magic." He explained the basic of Ryoko's sacred gear before she nodded and looked at the passed out Volley. "He should wake up a few minutes so you can start heading to school." Ryoko nodded before hugging Azazel. "Have a good day, Oibson," Ryoko said before rushing over to the elevator and pressed the button to go down and give Azazel a heartwarming smile, and he smiled back as the doors closed between the two. Azazel take a minute before looking at his son, who was starting to come round. "I am still in shock that you have not figured out what her scared gear is," Azazel said before offering Volley a hand, to which he take, and Azazel pulled him up. "Also no fighting with the Red Dragon Emperor, no man, or what?" Volley looked at Azazel confused. "But what about my great battle?" he asked as Azazel shook his head and crossed his arms. "I'm going to say, if as your and Ryoko-chan's surrogate father, I will not see another fight between the heavenly dragons again." Volley was mad about this as his rival was so close. "Plus I'm only telling you this, but Ryoko-chan been thought thing just like you," Azazel said, and Volley was a little shocked. "Like what?" he asked as Azazel sighed. "Depend." Azazel sat down on a chair and table close to a window across the way from Ryoko room. "Do you wanted to know about Ryoko-chan fears, or that she has no memories for her father or mother?" Azazel said as Volley went quiet at this new. Ryoko-chan uncle, who she lived with before coming under my care, was a heartless bastard who used her for his own gain. Volley got pissed as his grandfather was like that. And now she couldn't be close to another male without shaking. Azazel said as Volley was confused. "But she looks okay with me?" he asked as Azazel smiled. "I have a theory that may help her," Azazel said, and Volley was curious. "It to do with both your and her scared gear." Volley was listening to Azazel as he started to explain Ryoko's scared gear. "But that's something we can talk about later when you both come home." Volley sighed before asked one question. "Why does Ryoko not have memories of her parents?" Volley asked, and Azazel looked at the ground. "Did someone wipe them?" he asked, and Azazel shook his head. No. Azazel looked out of the window to the clear blue sky. She just woke up one day and forget everything. That alone was heartbreaking as she was a sweet girl and now she trying to make a new life for herself. Azazel looked at Volley again. So please help her in her time of need and be a good friend or brother if you want. Volley nodded. I will. Azazel and Volley decided to be a bit of a kid for once and hugged Azazel before walking away, leaving Azazel confused, but he smiled. Love you to Volley. Azazel said before he watched the sky to get some peace mind. Break. Volley final catches up with Ryoko, who was already most of the school. The two ended up talking about magic and a few ways Ryoko could improve her magic control, as she could only use a basic yet powerful wind spell, and the two only just got to the school and a few people was watching the two dragon walking. This that Ryoko snowflake. A man student said to his friend who nodded. Yeah, and damn, look at her. He said as Ryoko is one of the popular girls in school. She got more pretty before. He said as made Ryoko uncomfortable as she looked at the ground and this got Volley attention. She got a prefect B. Volley shouted at the pair. I fucker. Volley walked over to the pair of boys in a rage before grabbing one, making the comments by the collar. Make one more comment that make Ryoko uncomfortable and I will break you neck in two. He said, and this made the boy gip and before nodded as Volley drop him. One word of warning and a new flash. Ryoko, my girl, and if you even look at her in the wrong way you'll die. Bail that enough. Ryoko shouted, making Volley growl. I'm used to people commenting about me. She walked over to Volley and grabbed his ear. Oh. He shouted as Ryoko pulled him along. Ryoko, stop. I'm sorry. He said as he was pulled into the school only to be thrown into the wall by Ryoko herself and she pinned him. You may be my boyfriend, don't draw attention to us. She said before Volley sighed and nodded. This made Ryoko smiled sweetly. Good boy. Ryoko turned around and walked off. Follow me. Volley follow her only to get one comment from Albion. Wiped. Albion laughed, making Volley blush. Shut up. Volley followed to the teacher's office and he got assigned to Ryoko class 2B. What could happen in the class? We'll find out next time. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support the Silver the Snow Wolf for writing that awesome fanfic and also make sure to comment on this story. See you in the next video. Goodbye.